Before we get into this review, please like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching. Now let's get on with it. Once again, we're back at Ferrari Maserati of Central Florida, and today we've got something that surprisingly not many have reviewed. It's the all-new 2024 Maserati GranTurismo, and wow, it's been since 2018-19 since the last ones were sold. The first generation car, really technically the second generation car, because the GT was essentially the first GranTurismo. Here we are. So 3500 GT, the GT, and GranTurismo, and now the all-new GranTurismo. And this is a brand new bespoke chassis. I know a lot of people think that they've kind of nip and tucked this exterior, and while that might be true, the design language of the new Maseratis like the Grecale and the MC20 has carried over to this car, and it's very evident with the headlights. So where do we start? Well, for starters, this new chassis is a dual purpose chassis. This will come also as an EV called the Folgore, which means lightning in Italian. This right here is the Modena. This is the 490 horsepower. I believe that's metric, so about 483 American ponies. So 490 horsepower in this car. I believe 443 pound-feet of torque. Just, you know, classic Maserati styling. You've got a beautiful front end that just kind of slopes down over here. And let's take a look around the back. And out back, you see that it's very evident that Maserati wanted to preserve the design language of the old GranTurismo, especially the rear end, which was one of the most favorite aspects of the last car. And so what they've done was they've kind of shrunken the taillights a little bit, because the taillights on the old GranTurismo were a little big, especially as you went from the late 2000s into the late 2010s. The car started to look a little bit long in the tooth, but this has streamlined a lot of that design language from back in the day. And as you can see, a much smaller taillight, very, very pretty rear end, still really wide haunches back here, really aggressive stance, quad exhaust tips, and this blue is stunning. And of course, as always, cameraman Aiden has taken some gorgeous shots that we're gonna overlay into this as I'm talking about this color, and you're gonna see just how deep this blue is. And yeah, as always, the Maserati badge right here on the rear 3/4 panel looks stunning. It's such a nice little design feature, and it's oddly enough, more and more cars are starting to do this, especially BMW. They started kind of popping these things on the rear 3/4 of some of their cars as well. And it's a nice, clean little touch. Apparently, for a coupe, really weird. This is something you'd normally see in an SUV, but yet this car has it. And it's a pretty decent sized trunk. We've got a lot of sunlight, but it's a pretty decent sized trunk. You could fit a bunch of groceries in here, a couple of suitcases, or carry-ons at least, not a full suitcase. And you got automatic close as well. So very much a luxury GT car. It's sporty in nature. We're gonna go for a drive. We're gonna see how it all feels, etc., etc. But really, just gorgeous, gorgeous. About $190,000 for this car over here. $205,000 if you want the Trofeo, which has 550 horsepower. What do we think? We'll see. We'll see if the performance justifies the price tag. Now let's take a look at the engine bay. And of course, up front we have the Nettuno V6 borrowed. Ooh, that's hot. Borrowed from the MC20, slightly detuned between the Trofeo and the Modena version. And it's a pretty decent looking engine bay, actually. There's surprisingly a lot of access over here. I suspect that has something to do with this being a dual purpose chassis built for EVs, the EV version, and of course for the ICE version. Look how far back this engine is. It's practically mid-front engine. Yeah, it's really far behind this center line over here of the axle. Very impressive packaging. One of the biggest things that I've noticed they fixed on the new GranTurismo is the old GranTurismo had a really weird looking stance. Never could get with that. And by that I mean the old GranTurismo had really like a lot of wheel gap. On top of that, the offsets of the wheels had the wheels sitting really tucked in. They seem to have fixed that for the most part. There's still wheel gap because this is a GT car at the end of the day, and there's still going to be some of that extra positive offset that tucks the wheels inward, and that's a lot of times they do that so that when cars kick up rock chips, they kick them up into the wheel well and not at the car behind them. But you know, people like me, we like to add a spacer, or we like a wider wheel, etc., etc., and we like a lower riding car, but then we compromise safety, we compromise other things like comfort. But for the most part, this car does clean it up. On top of that, this car also has air suspension, and you're going to see the air suspension working right now. And as you can see, the car goes down about an inch or so from its highest setting. And another little visual aspect that carries over are these three little vents in the quarter panel. And as you can see, the black Modena badge over here. No door handle. Just like the Grecale, the door handle does not, you can't pull on it. There's a button inside. So you press the button and the door opens, and there you go. And now it's time to check out the interior. Here we are in the interior of the new GranTurismo, and surprise, surprise, it's basically the same exact interior as the Maserati Grecale, which I had done earlier. So if you haven't seen that video, take a look because I do detail this interior quite a bit. It is a absolutely fantastic interior for a car that starts at about $65,000. The Grecale has basically a six-figure interior, and this is really impressive. I think that for a nearly $200,000 car, this interior belongs here. I cannot fault Maserati for continuing to use this interior, which is largely borrowed, well, the tech is, not all this gorgeous leather, which is largely borrowed from the Chrysler group. All right, so this is something you'd find in some of the newer Jeeps, for example. And its functionality is just absolutely perfect. You've got shortcuts where you can increase like that. You can increase fan speed by swiping left and right. You don't have to tap, tap, tap like that. You don't need to do that. You've got shortcuts for all this stuff. On top of that, you've got your air suspension settings right here. Seat shortcuts as well over here for both passenger and driver. For your seat controls, you can adjust the bolsters and all sorts of other things. This is an 18-way adjustable seat, by the way. Furthermore, nav, plenty responsive. Over here, as you can see, you can flick this around. Vehicle settings over here. Vehicle monitoring as well, performance. So when you rev it, you can see the torque and you can see turbo pressure and oil pressure. This is just really nice sporty displays over here. And then furthermore, you have your mirror dimmer, glove box, lock, rear view camera that you could just turn on. And yes, you've got apps, you've got Alexa, you've got Android Auto. And then you can customize your home display to have a bit of both. So you've got your oil temp, transmission temp, battery voltage. These are kinds of things that I like. As an enthusiast of sports cars especially, I like seeing this kind of stuff. And you've got your nav over here on this side. This is customizable and configurable, so you can add widgets as well on another screen, or you can add an additional screen if you so choose, or a page. This right here is the clock, and on the Grecale, this is a configurable clock, and I believe it will be here as well. Yes, it is. Here you go. You can configure the clock, so I'm going to change it to a compass. I'm going to change it to pedal pressures, brake, or power. See? Brake, power, and then G meter. So a lot of functionality in this interior. Very, very quick. Transmission, park, reverse, neutral, drive. This is a ZF 8-speed transmission. So it functions the exact same way that the Grecale does. So you've got buttons here as well. There's no stalk. There's no shifter. You've got some storage here. You've got your cup holders here. And if you are the type of person that complains about small Italian cup holders, here you go. This comes out for more space for your extra large drink. A wireless charger's over here. And as always, they don't work. I mean, I have yet to test a car that had great wireless charging. Your key, in case there's any kind of connection issue with your key, you place your key here. It should restore functionality to the key. USBs over here, 12 volt. Steering wheel, push to start over here on this side. Drive mode selector over here on this side. Volume switches, Bluetooth, voice assistant, speed, cruise control, etc., all your menus and functionalities, and this is all configurable as well over here. Overall, just a gorgeous looking interior, and you've got this little Italian flag right there. Maybe they could have taken some pride and made that flag a little larger, because this is a wonderful looking interior. Got wood over here that runs all around, and you probably could barely notice it, but there's wood here as well. It's a very thin sliver of wood. So, but mostly you see it on the doors over here. You've got the Sonus Faber audio system, which sounded incredible in the Grecale. It's an award-winning sound system. Beautiful stitching all around here, on the seats here. And let's take a look at that back seat. Can I fit there? I'm 6'1". Can I fit in the back seat of a Maserati GranTurismo? All right, let's take a look at the back seat. Can I fit behind myself? There we go. A little tight. It's moving back, and oh, okay. Barely. Barely. There are cutouts over here behind the seat, and I have this much room. I have some headroom right above the rear glass, and that makes me feel a little weird. I don't want to be sitting right. I don't want my head to be where the glass is, so it makes me feel a little uncomfortable. I wouldn't call it claustrophobic, but if you're under 6 feet tall, you'd probably be okay here. If you're over 6 feet tall, I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, I really have very little leg room here. I'm literally talking less than about an inch. But I have to say, back here, it's actually very nice. You've got 2 cup holders, you've got some USB ports, climate, vents. Oh, let's see. Okay, that's a pass-through. You've got a pass-through over there, and that's it. So, very small back seat, but functional. All right, we are in the GranTurismo, and here we go. We're going for a drive. We're going for a drive in the GranTurismo. I'm very excited about this. This is one of the few cars on the internet that has not been overexposed like crazy, where everyone's done a review of it, or people have done quarter miles, etc., etc. So I feel a little bit privileged that I'm one of the earlier people who gets to review this. And I have to thank Maserati of Central Florida yet again. And I have my buddy with me, actually sitting next to me. He works there. So if you want to see him about this car, his name's Jan. So I'm coming to a stop here, and immediately I've already noticed a few things. Wonderful steering, very, very nice. It sounds really good in here too. I'm wondering if some of that sound is piped in or not. I do know that the car sounds pretty good on the outside regardless, because we did that startup video, we did that rev, and it sounds very, very nice. This 3-liter V6, again, makes 483 horsepower. That's American horsepower, 490 metric. You know, just wonderful, wonderful motor, great ZF 8-speed transmission, which has just become the standard. And let's go. Okay. I'm gonna take a turn here. It's a little bit of a bumpy road, but that tells me that this car in sport mode is very capable of handling some city streets. Another turn here. And now we've got rumble strips. My rumble strip test. We're gonna hit these rumble strips at 40. Wow, again, I'm really impressed how Maserati dampens their suspension over these sharp impacts. The MC20 was just as good for being a supercar. One more time. That was 40 again. And we are in sport mode, dynamic mode. Let's double check that. Yeah, we're in sport mode. We're gonna, again, rumble strips at 40. Man, from this seat over here, that is so comfortable. You really don't feel the impact a whole lot. You know, you hear the impact a little bit, but you don't feel it. It's not chattering your teeth, for example, like other cars do. And some of those other cars are SUVs. Very nice. Very nice. So despite being about 490 horsepower, this is still a car that's plenty quick. Maserati says the Trofeo version would hit 60 in about 3.5 seconds. It'll do 124, about 200 kilometers per hour in, I believe 11.4 was the stated number. And so this being a detuned version of that, probably high threes to hit 60, maybe add 0.3 of a second, 0.4 of a second to do 200 kph or 124 miles per hour. Another turn over here. So my immediate impressions for this car is, I have to say before I get into that, there's a 370Z up ahead of us, and he is slowing down considerably, and you're going to see this on the GoPro footage, and he's trying to go around these bumps because the 370Z, and I've owned one, and is a supremely firm ride, and this one slammed. So I can do that at 40. He is doing that at about 15 because I have to really slow down and hit the brakes. Now, having said that, suspension, handling, there's more body roll here than a 911, for example. This is a GT car. This feels more like a competitor to the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. In my opinion, this looks way better than the Vantage, which has some really odd lines. The rear end, the rear deck, the spoiler, if you want to call it that, has that odd light bar that kind of flows up and then down all across the rear end of that car. The very simplistic, basic looking headlights on the Vantage, they just don't do it for me. I think Aston Martin's kind of lost its way with just the Vantage. Just the Vantage. The DBS, DB12, still beautiful. It's obviously, I'm a big fan of the DBX, but this is a Vantage competitor, and this looks better. I think the Vantage might handle a little bit better. It's been a while since I've driven one, but if you're buying a car like this, you're probably not looking to carve canyons or take it to a track. And of course, this is not the Trofeo version, and I will drive a Trofeo version in due time, but I expect the Trofeo to handle better in that regard because it's considerably more expensive, but still quick. If I had to put a number on it, purely from my butt dyno, I'd say this Modena, probably low 12s, high 11s. It feels a tick slower than my Jaguar F-Type R. So just as a frame of reference of what I'm looking at here. But slow it is not. And I do like the steering. I think it's got good response. There is some suspension float. Again, this is a comfort-based car. This is a GT car. This is not something you take to the track. It's something to live with every day. This makes a lot of sense. I would say that, though, the price difference between this and the Trofeo is not very large. So if you want a car that's faster, more capable, I would probably order a Trofeo. But if you're just looking for the most comfortable GranTurismo, I would get this. And for somebody who lives in a big city, this is the car that makes more sense. So if you live in New York like I used to, and I frequent New York all the time because my entire family still lives there, this is the car I'd want to drive. I probably wouldn't want to drive the Trofeo version, assuming that it's much stiffer than this car. So sound gets high remarks for me. I think this is a very pleasing soundtrack in here. The interior gets very, very high remarks for me. I just think this is such a gorgeous looking interior. I love sitting in these new Maseratis. The Grecale blew me away, and this car blows me away as well. There's really nothing to complain about. Everywhere you look, every material is so premium. It's so well finished. Handling, again, comfort based, not a track car. Power more than adequate, very quick, should be doing somewhere in the 11s, low 12s. Weight of this car, now, according to Maserati, it's 4,000 pounds. And I'm guessing that's probably dry weight. So by the time somebody puts one of these on a set of scales, I would imagine this thing weighs probably 4,250, 4,300 pounds with full fluids, et cetera, et cetera. So not a light car. But that's kind of the price you pay when you're in a GT car and you want to be a little bit insulated from the elements outside. And going over these speed bumps, amazing. I can't stress this enough. If you live in a big city and you're looking for a GT car that will not beat you up, if you're looking for something very sporty that will not beat you up, I think this is the car you want to look at. Assuming you're okay with the price tag. And of course, if you really love the car, you maybe wait around a little bit. Depreciation might impact the price tag at the end of the day, and I would definitely really recommend one of these mid 100s, so $150,000 or so. So having said that, my final verdict on this car is it lives up to the GranTurismo name. I think it improves everything over the old car. Yes, it's not a V8. Yes, it sounds different, but for this V6, it still sounds really, really, really good. It does everything right, essentially. If you want a firmer suspension, if you want a more sport-oriented version of this car, you have the Trofeo for that. The price premium of the Trofeo, considering the price tag of the standard Modena version, it's not that big of a price premium. So if you're looking for something with a more sportier edge, you get the Trofeo. If you're looking for comfort, you live in a big city, you get this. The GranTurismo actually meets my expectations. In some areas, it exceeds my expectations. So if you like cars like this, if you love Italian sports cars, if you love Italian GT cars, Maseratis, Ferraris, Alfa Romeos even, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.